Hello, and welcome to Historical Fiction with Kviatoslav. I enjoy reading historical fiction books and discussing them and reviewing them, and particularly books from the 20th century. So recently I did a video on a book called The Children's Crusade by Henry Treece, which was a book about a historical event in the 13th century, in which a number of children, young people mostly, decided to attempt to retake Jerusalem, the Holy Land, leaving from France and Germany, and with kind of a charismatic young shepherd preacher, there was an attempt to walk to the Holy Land and reach the Mediterranean Ocean, and they thought that it would part like the Red Seas, and they would be able to walk to Jerusalem. Obviously, that didn't actually happen, and the event, while very idealistic, actually ended up in abject failure, with many of the children sold into slavery in the Islamic world, and basically a case of kind of youthful folly. And recently, I've read another book about the same topic, but this one was written a little bit later. I think it was written sometime in the 1970s, and it covers the same topic, but from a more kind of adult perspective. While the main characters, like in the previous book, are children, this one is definitely much more of an adult themed book, and it doesn't pull as many punches as the Henry Treece book did. So this is called An Army of Children by Evan H. Rhodes. And it's actually a book that I read, say, 20, 25 years ago, I think when I was in university, from the library, and I enjoyed it a lot. And recently I found it on Amazon, a copy of it on Amazon, and was able to buy it and reread it because I remembered enjoying it and wanted to give it another shot. And I think now I probably enjoy it even more than I did previously. As I said, it covers the same territory, this kind of idealistic youth movement, well, two youth movements, one from France and one from Germany. And this one, interestingly, covers the kind of the German wing of the crusade, whereas the other one covered the French wing there, which I think ultimately was probably the more difficult one, because the children leaving from Germany had to actually cross the Alps before they reached the Mediterranean and Italy, so they had an even more kind of perilous journey. But overall, I think this is a really excellent book. It's a very hard-hitting book. It's not for the faint of heart, in that they really put the main characters through the ringer there, which is, historically accurate, as it would have been a terrible journey for almost everyone that was engaged on it. I think this one does quite well. I probably wouldn't recommend it to young readers. I think you should be at least, high school, college age before you would tackle this one, because even though the main characters are 12, 13, 14-year olds, I said it does really doesn't pull any punches. The main characters, I actually like this cover quite well because it covers most of the main characters in the book. The first kind of main character is actually an adult called Baron Thorn, who is the father of the young protagonist, Roger. And he kind of represents the more adult aspect. He's a bit more cynical. He's been on crusade before, and he's of the nobility, but he's becoming a merchant, trying to make his way in the world, and has a much more worldly view, but also a more cynical view than the young people in the book. His son, Roger, is 14 years old and doesn't really want to become a merchant like his father. Actually, is much more idealistic, dreams of going on crusade and so on. And he's taken in by one of the prophets, Stephen, and it really epitomizes the kind of youthful enthusiasm that must have overtaken these children, and that he really feels like, young people can change the world, and the answer is not in the older generation fighting, but the youthful generation kind of loving. He is, an annoying character in some ways because he's very idealistic, he's very bigoted in many ways. Um, but he also has a lot of kind of useful enthusiasm. The other main character is one that his father rescues, who's this young boy named Jonathan, who's actually secretly a orphaned Jewish boy whose family was massacred in England there. And he actually comes along. He's the more kind of, I would say, cynical youth there, in that he kind of questions the idea of Christianity, you know, being able to convert and overtake the Holy Land and so on. But he obviously at that time period he has to keep his identity secret, because if he was found out as a Jew, you know, going on crusade, you know, the consequences would be poor for him. There's also the teacher of Roger, who is a young monk there, who kind of comes along basically to watch over the boys. And he kind of represents the more kind of naive Christianity of the book. And there are also a pair of Flemish girls, L'Oreal here, who basically becomes the love interest of the two boys, and also her sister Flamande, who's kind of the older 20-something and more kind of worldly of the two sisters. And another character, like the other two main characters here, are a character called Frizio, who's a half-caste Muslim, who basically becomes the antagonist of the young people, following them along with the ultimate plan to kind of sell them into slavery, and his unique slave, Baalbek, there. And they are really, really, if you like, kind of dastardly villains. They are very easy to dislike there. However, like in the real world, you know, villains often are successful. And while they're not, I won't have any spoilers there, while they're not completely successful, they do cause a lot of trouble for the youth movement there. And overall, I'd say it's a really excellent, well-written book. Even if you know the story, it's got a lot of twists and turns, and particularly hardships. If you're the kind of person like myself who doesn't always like to read about kind of happy, fun situations and more like the brutality of history, I would say this is a definite recommend from me. So, An Army of Children by Evan H. Rhodes. Thanks for your time. Goodbye.